Hello and welcome to the Podquest of Bread. My name is Henry Conley. Tonight we are coming back at you with another interview. For those that are new to the Podquest of Bread Podquest, we occasionally do interviews here with prominent activists, with prominent candidates for office, and people generally making change. A couple housekeeping things just to so everybody understands. This banner will be running down at the bottom of the screen for most of the show. If you have a comment, please make the comment on one of the platforms that I'm streaming on. I can bring it up on screen, and then we can actually ask the guest. So without further ado, let me introduce my guest. Tonight I have Anthony Simpson, founder of the Lansdale Equality Coalition. Excited to sit down with him. Anthony, welcome to the Podquest of Bread.
What's up, Henry? Thanks for
How you
having
doing?
me. Good.
So, glad to get you onto the Podquest, and I think the best way to kind of kick off this episode and kind of get the discussion going is to talk about what the Landsdale Equality Coalition is.
So, obviously, you and I know it started with I went to the Lansdale Borough Hall, one of their council meetings, and I had an idea for a Black Lives Matter mural outside the borough building, and that sparked quite the debate. I guess you could say it's still in discussion. There's more to talk about in that regard, but while we were discussing that, naturally throughout the community, people were like, oh, why don't you do this? What about that? Yada, yada. And, I think some of us were sitting there like, yeah, why don't we do this? Why don't we do that? I know there was the idea of, trying to identify people of color that, have the birthright and the service right to be, hanging on our hometown heroes banners on Main Street and Broad Street throughout the town somewhat. That's something we started to work on, and that's a good example of some of the ideas that were presented to us. So naturally we said, I think there is more to this than just getting this mural done. I think there's a lot of good, a lot of people want to try to get the opportunity to do, and creating this coalition presents that opportunity pretty much for anybody that wants to get involved. I mean, anybody that has an idea and wants to get involved, we're all for it. We've been wide open. All our meetings have been public. The committee that'll be being formed to discuss the mural more, will be a public, private, committee that, the whole community's allowed to get in on. So, hopefully we're able to build this. We definitely got a few things in the works right now, and, I'm excited to be here to, talk with you about it. And, this has been a long time coming. You've working pretty hard with this, so,
No, it's been a very exciting movement, and it's been a very fun journey for us. Anybody that is watching the podcast, I got involved with the LEC back when it was the Black Lives Matter mural that we were trying to get. Now, for those watching, what was the that Black Lives Matter mural? For those that might not know about it, those that might watch it somewhere else in the country here, what was the idea behind that, and how has that evolved into what it potentially could become?
okay. So the idea that, I guess you could say, was created was to put Black Lives Matter on a portion of the Liberty Bell Trail that's it's part of a statewide circuit of trails, actually, that runs especially through the county and all that. But it's just a little black, about 10 feet wide blacktop trail that is right between the Borough Building and Railroad Avenue. And Railroad Avenue is strictly SEPTA Street now. It's Route 96 Street. The 96 buses don't, and emergency vehicles, I'm sure. But so yeah, the original idea was to get it on that stretch, a very perfect stretch of the Liberty Bell Trail. We have more than 200 feet in length to work with, and a 10-foot width. And throughout the discussions, it was brought up by one of the borough councilmen. I guess that was Jason Van Dame, I believe his name is. He suggested moving it back to Railroad Avenue. Most of the mayor and a few other of the council members, they didn't like the marketability aspect of it and yada yada. And eventually, we, in trying to find that way to work with them, I mean, you could tell they weren't budging, but there was also this perception that I was being stubborn.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like, our final presentation, had 3 proposals in it. And even up to the last day, we had people saying like, "Oh, why don't we add this as an idea?" We got 3 at this point. Like, we pretty much knew which of the 3 they were going to choose, because it's obvious, So the 3 proposals were, the original proposal to put it on the Liberty Bell Trail. The second one was to move it back onto Railroad Avenue, which I wasn't against that. I guess there was probably about 12 feet of width there, and definitely as wide as we wanted, so that wouldn't have been an issue. But the third option was to basically hand the project over to the borough and let them figure out the appropriate way to get this message across. We've been assured that, the mayor, President Burnell, they seem to be, wanting to be like, yes, we believe in this. I think you and I have discussed, our beliefs as to why, they don't really have guts to push forward with it. But, so it has been basically, their suggestion is that a public/private committee be formed, to discuss this and various other things that can be done to bring these kinds of awarenesses to Lansdale, because, Lansdale has done some good things in the last, 10 years. They've tried to be on a, as proactive.
They've made a lot of great steps towards equality.
Right, in a lot of ways. And a lot of sections of our community have. You know what I mean? There's young activists. There's, high schoolers. You know what I mean? Business owners are getting in on it. You know what I mean? Like all walks of life throughout the community, and it's great. Which makes Lansdale such a great platform for, this kind of springboard for the conversation that's taking place across the nation.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like I told him when I brought this, like this isn't nobody wants to get this paint down and call it a day. This is just the beginning. You know what I mean? And
and when you look at the things that when you look at the things that Lansdale's done as a town, just outside of this, I mean, you can see why it would be thought that it would be such a perfect town to springboard an idea like this off of, especially when you look at the things going on, like the major support of black-owned businesses within our town, the push by the local breweries to create the craft beer that they did. I mean, There's so much support of equality in this town that, of course you'd
And
think it would
I
be.
mean, it's it is disheartening to a degree, that, they seem to want to find a way to have this conversation, but kind of like sidestep this. Not, they don't want to say the words.
Yep.
You know what I mean? They'll say they agree, but you haven't actually heard any one of them actually say the words. You know what I mean? And, I know that for me, going into these discussions with them, I intend to be very adamant that we're going to find a way to stay the course.
Oh yeah.
And I feel like to a degree they're willing to do that. They just gotta. I think they're hoping that at some point a level of support that can be gained that they say, all right, go ahead, let's do this.
Yep.
And part of that's on us to help gather that, and working with them, letting them use their outlets to reach out to the community. It's all going to be good. It creates a great opportunity, and for the simple fact that it's not an end all be all, it creates the platform for the entire community to continue the discussion and move it forward. You know what I mean? So
now, one thing, with the mural, because I should have uploaded a photo onto the system so I could actually show anybody watching what it was going to be. But the whole idea, like, what was the purpose and the thought process behind how it was set up, how it was going to be laid down, and what it was going to be facing? Because there is a story that needs to be said there.
okay, so that's right, and this is a critical element of it that it's so it started with the idea of a community event, right? In that regard, we had a huge amount of support. People, so the idea was, once we were given, if they would have, pulled the trigger and given us permission to do this, we would have created a quick crowdfunding element and gotten the supplies and the materials we need, and we would have had an amazing day. One of the things that really, I guess you could say, agitated me in our last borough meeting that we attended was this notion that Black Lives Matter doesn't represent the diversity of our community. And aside from the protests, even the small ones in town, they show a much more diverse crowd than the wall of white people you walk into when you hit a Trump rally or a Back the Blue thing. But that could have been an amazing day for Landsdale. That could have been a story a whole lot of people wanted to tell. People from all walks of life were ready to come out and put this down. And really capture the solidarity of this town and this, I find it disheartening that the community won't be able to participate in that regard. Whatever is decided in the end will basically most likely have an artist, a local artist hired to even possibly create, throw some ideas out. So, but it'll be a local artist that does it. And I feel, we were well prepared for, the COVID restrictions. I think, Sierra in general, Sierra Groover, she did an amazing job creating that, that demonstration we had, the virtual tour,
Oh, yeah.
and all that stuff, and really
And
laying out
for anybody
project.
watching, if you want to get an idea what we're talking about, if you go to the link that I'm scrolling across the bottom here, you can actually see it in the cover page or the cover photo of the page. It's a very well done mock-up.
Right. It was, I mean, it was a very well put together presentation to the borough. You know, I'm proud of it. You know, regardless, you know, we're not actually claiming victory yet, but man, you know, when I went to the borough that day saying this is what I wanted to do, I really didn't think it was going to be much of a discussion. I really thought I'd get a yes or a no within a week or two. You know what I
Yep.
mean? But
Yeah.
you know, they challenged me, you know, to challenge the community, and to a large degree, in many ways, the community delivered. You know what I mean? And you know, it's sad that you know our councils, no matter how they want to say it, political agenda just won't allow them to proceed in this direction.
It is pretty unfortunate. Now, one thing that like before we get into other things that you're taking up as activist, other things that we got involved or you're getting involved in, just quickly, when you look at the words, and of course I just want to get this out here for the everybody watching. When you look at it, the words are pointed in a very specific direction for a very specific way to be read. Now, what was the idea behind that?
Well, so again, I mean, my idea was to issue a challenge to, from, and with the borough, you know, to make that bold declaration that, you know, this is who we are. This is, you know, this is the direction we're going. You know, it's an, like I've heard from others, it's an unapologetic step forward, you know, and Landsdale Borough, you know, that's the borough building, you know, that's where, you know, right now, you know, just 2 weeks ago, they, you know, or a month ago, maybe they, you know, passed a comprehensive plan for Lansdale that is largely incomplete still. That's where they write our, you know, that's where they shape, especially the people that live in the borough, you know, how the houses are built, you know, the codes, the enforcements, how things look, yada yada. You know, to a large degree, it's like one giant, uh, like housing authority to a degree. You know what I mean? Like, you know, they exact so much control over the residents that live there, and you know they've acknowledged as much as things. You know, there's things like targeting renters in a lot of ways. You know, and just basic starting points like that. You know, so to have this message facing them, you know, so that our elected officials now, our elected officials next time, know that we're there. You know, they'll know what we stand for. They'll know what we expect. You know, the police in there will know, because they share a building with the police station. They'll know we're there, we're watching, we're here. The inmates being held in there will know we're watching, we care, and I felt that was extremely important not to sway from that, because like I said, it is a challenge, and I had hoped for a more receptive acceptance of that challenge from our borough council.
I will say, the thought process that went into it to say, okay, we're going to aim this at the borough building, and we're going to target them with this message and make sure they understand we are keeping an eye on you, we are watching you. That's what caught my attention right when this came out. when it hit all the different community groups. Just how much thought you guys had put into it up to that point was absolutely astounding. And you know, it kind of matches all the other ones that went down. You know, in New York City, they did one in front of Trump's tower. You
Right.
know, in other states and cities, they've done ones in places where it's a prominent location, and that really stunned
Norristown's
me.
got one getting ready to face their courthouse.
Yep.
You know, right there on Sweet Street. You know, I mean, and I mean, you know, I watched that Norristown Borough Council meeting when they decided to go through with this, and you know, their community said all the same nonsense things our
Yep.
community was saying, practically verbatim. Every single talking point, same exact thing was hit. And the fact that they were like, unapologetically, we are doing this, you know, that was inspired, you know, and like, you know, that is a great counsel for that community. And
It
I
shows
really
what good
hope
people in office can do.
And I really hope that, you know, one of the things we're able to take up is to start driving more people from the Lansdale community, especially of color, to challenging this white bread council we've had for centuries. You know what I mean? And that's not to say that the council members, you know, I'm not pointing any specific one out as saying you specifically don't belong here. But, you know, it does need to be brought to attention that it's time to, you know,
It's got
shake
to
and
be
bake some things
diversified.
up. Right, right. And there needs to be a spirit of rotation. I'm sure most of these councilmen are looking at, you know, moving on to county and state, you know, type positions. So, hey, you know, like we got to be prepared to help draw members of our community into challenging other members of our community to them positions, because I believe it should be a challenging prospect. I know that there's one of our councilmen that ran unopposed,
Yep.
and you know that's not the councilman's fault. You know what I mean? Like, you know, we need to try to way to really have our community challenge each other, and have, you know, you'd think the borough would want to get in on that. You know, that's their play field there. That's their battle. You know,
Exactly. Now, you as an activist, I mean, I've only known you for roughly 2 months now, but you're getting yourself so involved in so many things. Um, let's just take it right back to the beginning. What got you involved? Like, what made you say, you know what, I'm gonna be out there in the streets. I'm gonna do something. What sparked you to want to be an activist?
so I think, you know, I've never shied away from stating the fact that, you know, I spent, especially the bulk of the last 4 years, really just mad as hell on Facebook, you know, and, you know, not really knowing what to do, you know, things were happening, but, you know, nothing really seemed energized. You know, they were all very basic attempts. I think, you know, obviously, you know, the friends that I had originally conversed with about this Black Lives Matter mural, um, you know, when it was first, when the idea was first created, you know, and a couple people I talked to, you know, the light in their eyes at the idea of it, you know, that really gave me the strength to go to the borough. Now, when the energy on the streets got so great, you know, like literally like right after I took this to council, you know, there was another, you know, half decent uh, protest in Landsdale. And, you know, I was able to go out there and, you know, start handing out information about the project and the group we were putting together and yada, yada. And it blew up. And, you know, like I said, when the conversations steered from Black Lives Matter 1,001 ways, you know, Um, there were times when basically I'm not going to call them rebuttals. They weren't rebuttals as much as great suggestions for what else we can do, you know? And as these things started to come to light, I was like, man. And as I saw the opportunity to actually get involved and have the opportunity to push some buttons that might at least get the conversations going, that's just, for me, an exciting prospect. And, with the support that I've had, to this point, and especially after the hard work that, that you've done, Henry, that Sierra's done, Pat beating the street the way he does, going to all them protests and stuff, like, and then the other people in the group that, have guided the direction of, the foundation of this group. So, like, at the end of the day, like, that emboldens me to want to do my best to really help where we can help and provide a wide open platform, that's fluid enough for all these social injustice issues and all these, plights for help to hop on and start making some noise, because together, we can find that common thread and really grow something that, makes a difference. And we've already gotten an opportunity to get involved with a couple projects outside of the mural that, are going to have an awesome effect on not just Lansdale, but other communities,
And that's what I wanted to get to is, like the projects that are coming up. I mean, it seems like every time we turn around, there's something else that's presented itself, and I really wanted to get into, one of them that I think the leftist crowd that will tend to watch this really would love, and that is the marijuana boxes. You want to talk a little bit about that and what the idea
Sure.
is?
So, I guess, about a week ago, we were out in Norristown, at an event out in Norristown, and one of the tents set up out there was a tent for the organization Normal. And, I'm talking to the guy, he's telling me about bills that are being presented, yada, yada. And then he had mentioned that he has an application, an 18-page application for anybody in the state that has, a minor to mild, marijuana charge or conviction rather, can get that expunged. And I know from firsthand experience that even when they say after so and so amount of time it'll automatically be expunged, in Montgomery County that doesn't necessarily happen just like that. There's some proactive things that need to be done that a lot of people don't know what to do. So, I picked up the application that he had on his table, but he was like, yeah, if you could just leave that here. And, I got a box down there on Main Street that, has these applications free to the community and, yada, yada. And I got a light bulb, man. I was like, yo, how do I get one of them boxes in Lansdale? He was like, Lansdale? I've been trying to get in Lansdale for a long time, yada, yada, yada. So over the last week, we've been talking to him, and I reached out to quite a few venues. And, as of right now, the Lansdale Library is giving us a spot for one of these refurbished newspaper boxes, that you used to get, your Sunday paper out of, refurbished, re-decal, all cool, with free packets, man. Somebody, if somebody's got a cannabis conviction on their record, they just got to fill out that 18-page form, get it to the state, and, they'll have a great opportunity. And, again, like I said, I know firsthand how critical it is, especially for people, late teens, early 20s, early to mid 20s, that don't understand how these kind of charges are going to affect them down the road. I know until I talked to this guy, I didn't even know that a lot of these, applications were so easily available. Nobody wants to go through the motions that they tell you got to go through to get to these things. We just naturally don't want to deal with it. So, the fact, so the library is going to hook us up with a spot outside the library for now. The Lansdale reporter is getting ready to donate, however many more boxes they got to give. That's going to be awesome. Waiting to hear back from Matt on Main Street. That's going to be a great location. Henry, you and I have talked about a couple more spots along the way, and it's only just beginning. This is something that needs to get out there. Especially these more diverse communities need access to this information. Especially as it becomes decriminalized, because at some point, these things won't become a now issue, but it's going to be several generations before the people have these kind of issues behind them. So the faster we can get these people funneled through, as it gets decriminalized and recreationalized, society will be able to move on, because they will, they judge you based on these kind of criminal background, checks. So, I've lived it. So I'm extremely excited to help this group and to partner up with them and get this information out there. The dude Jeff is a great dude. The Monco chapter of Normal. Look them up. They're on Facebook. All that stuff. He's got a lot of great ideas, and in time, I hope he's able to let people hear them ideas, and we're able, I intend to help them as much as I can. I intend to let the Lansdale Equality Coalition help them as best I can. And, I implore your coalition to hop right on board and steamroll this thing, across the freaking state if we can. You know what I mean?
Definitely. Now, some of the other things that, luckily through the LEC, you've gotten involved with, Monco Activists United, Refuse Fascism Philly. There's doors opening left and right for you. So, why don't you talk about some of the things that you got coming up, like, through either the LEC and Monco Activists United or LEC and Refuse Fascism Philly?
So yeah, I guess first of all is the August 30th protest and rally march of sorts. We'll be having speakers and all that stuff. We intend to meet at the Memorial Park in town there, and then after some bit of time, we'll march down to the Borough Building, put on a demonstration there, and then probably just head back out on the Main Street a little bit and, wrap it up after a little while. Should be a decent event. Monco Activists United has, made a pledge to be there. Thinks, there'll be Refuse Fascism has said they'll have representation there. I'm getting information from all angles from other coalitions that are looking to partner, and I think, the fact that the hardest thing throughout all these years of all this social justice, back in the 50s is this, the support. The or lack thereof. We've had a million good causes, but never really enough support for anybody to really, drive anything home. Now you got support coming from every angle. And, I can't think of a more polarized time than now to really, have communities try to capture that energy and really use it as a focal point to build their communities going forward. You know, um, it'll always take a village, and we got to take this idea that our elected officials just get to sit comfortably in their seats without being questioned, without being any of that, without being stuck between a rock and a hard place, to make sure the community's involved with how we move forward.
I've always liked, the idea of holding a fire to our elected officials' asses. I mean, I've always respected the idea of that. I mean, anarchist at heart here.
You got to, and they have no right to sit comfortably, especially in 2020. What elected official has the right to sit comfortably, acting like everything's all right? They were telling us when we tried to get this mural done that that's not Lansdale. Those things don't happen here. Well, our own freaking police just experienced that. That indeed happens here.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So, not in no way.
For anybody watching, if they don't, if they're not in the Lansdale area, what Anthony's referring to is we just had a black officer in the Landsdale Police Department responding to a passed out subject have racial slurs flung at her, and I believe the guy threatened to hang her from a tree, if I remember correctly.
It was crazy, man.
Absolutely disgusting from a member of the community, and that's right here.
And we're so used to seeing that kind of behavior, resident to resident. It's becoming a big common thread to see the police treating, especially a member of the black community like that. But Lansdale just showed us a resident treating a cop like that. You know what I mean? So we are not immune. The Lansdale Police is not immune from this conversation. And Lansdale Borough elected officials are not immune from this conversation. And our entire community is not immune from this conversation. A lot of this has to do with a gut check for ourselves before we can look out into the community and say, yeah, let's build this world that so many deserve and just aren't get it.
I think one of the most beautiful things about what's happening now, and I've said this to some people in passing, I probably said it to you when we were in Doylestown, but one of the things that I find most beautiful about what's happening right now is we are actually witnessing what was attempted to start way back even during Obama's administration, where the whole Black Lives Matter movement started. It never gained the ground that it has today, and one of the most beautiful correlations I've seen out there is people saying that this is our generation's civil rights movement, and I can't deny that fact. It is so true.
It's true. I think I think to a degree it's even larger than that. Agreed. I feel that there's members of every generation right now. We got teenagers out there making a huge difference in the streets. They're pounding the streets. You know what I mean? Like never before. And there's people my age that just are just getting involved now. And so right now, almost anybody that wants to get involved has an opportunity, has an outlet, has a platform that's for them, that fits with what's going on out there. Because like I said before, the one thing that's happening now that never happened before is just the support is there from every angle.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like every generation has its ups and, has its for and its against. And that's never been like that. It's always been a whole generation versus a whole nother generation. You know what I mean? Never such a mixed bag.
It's been beautiful. I mean, we even saw it up in Doylestown where, you had literally everything from high school age kids to literal boomers out there,
Children to every walk of life. And that is a beautiful thing. That's what reflects the diversity of this community. Not in my, you know what I mean? Like that in all communities, even in Lansdale, even the one we had the other day where 12 people was there. it was a diverse crowd. It was as
Oh,
diverse as you
you had
can
two
get.
kids. You had two
Right,
kids on the other side. Your kids were
right.
there. I mean,
And you know, any rally that would have tried to come out against that protest would have been one kind of person.
oh yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, so it's not even close. You know, the fact that there is such a large component of that kind of person in Lansdale, you know, that's what keeps our elected officials from really, you know, pulling the trigger on
yeah,
something as no brainer as this. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
exactly. Now, of course, because you are on a leftist podcast and you are on a podcast that caters towards, people on my side of the spectrum, and, you've hinted that you're on the same side of the political spectrum, I got to hit you with some, like, lightning round style questions just off the cuff before we close it out for the episode. But let's hit you with a couple things. Let's, human rights. Is it right for someone to have access to clean drinking water?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think to now, I mean, you know, I'm disgusted with every community. You know, I mean, our water right now isn't clean. I mean, it is, but it isn't. I mean, and for all these communities across our country now, 100 some years old, our pipes are trash. You know what I mean? And like we're heading down a very dangerous road with that. And yes, clean water is 100% a human right, no questions asked. You know, not debatable.
Should
You know
someone
what I mean?
starve because they can't afford food?
Absolutely not. You know what I mean? Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
And at any point in life, because someone faced a hardship, should they have to fear losing the roof over their heads?
That's one of the most heartbreaking things about how we live here in America is this corporate mentality with our housing, you know, like and it's predatory. The predatory, you know, corpocracy that's developed over our national housing systems it's heartbreaking and no. You know, even when I was younger, I was seeing families that had houses in their families for generations, bought, paid for, that didn't know a dime for decades, lost their house for whatever reason. You know what I mean? All the loopholes the banks find, you know, the government's find,
Yep.
landowners find, yada yada, and for my money shouldn't be an issue when it comes to housing. I don't know, you know, and housing shouldn't be a for-profit industry. You know what I mean?
Damn
Like
right.
it shouldn't be a for-profit industry. Now, sure, I can imagine there's no way around, you know, legally creating a doorway for saying, you know, okay, there's most likely going to be some kind of profit. Like you can put away some nest egg to feed off in the future. You know what I mean? Like, because, you know, just the way it's. But it should not be a for-profit industry. You know what I mean? Like, people shouldn't be running other people into the ground like that. You know, I expect you to work hard to keep, you know, my bills paid. Like, come on, man.
Mm-hmm. And I
No,
think the last one I'm going to hit you with on the lightning round here, healthcare. Is that a right?
I'm 100% for healthcare as a human right. I'm a huge advocate for single payer right now. I know there's a lot of, you know, back and forth about that. I just, you know, I'm of the mindset, get it done because the money's there. I don't care. The money will always be there. So dress it up how you want, call it what you want. The amount of money it would cost to fund healthcare for 10 years, they've already blew in the last 20 years, you know what I mean, 10 times over again.
They
So
blew it in the first 6 months of the fiscal
they're
period on the
not
military.
right. You could whack 300 billion from the military right now, still have the highest paid military on the planet and at least fund universal health care for 1 year.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like,
Exactly.
you know
There's
what I mean?
ways
So
around it.
like the money's there. I don't care. You know what I mean? And they've got, I've said 1,000 times, they got boatloads of money this world will never know about. They're always pulling rabbits out their hat when a corporation comes crying.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? So
just look what they did with the CARES
absolutely.
Act.
It's absolutely a healthcare, and I'm absolutely 100% for a single payer system, and I'm absolutely for moving away from a single payer system even in the future. You know what I mean? Like, to where money isn't an issue with these things. You know what I mean? Like, it's no longer a part of our responsibility. You know what I mean? The tax money that they'll be getting from us anyways will always be enough to sustain. We're never going to pay less than 25% income. No matter what, we pay 25% of our taxes at a minimum. You know what I mean? Most of us. So that's never going to change no matter how you chop it up and yada, yada. You're always going to find other ways to use that money. That's all you got to do. Find another way to use that money. You know what I mean? And down the road, we can create, if we're able to create a society, as not dependent on money, and people are more comfortable with providing their services and getting back to just, being a village.
The community.
I can't wait. I'd love to be a part of it. It's probably not going to be in my time, but hey, I got a newborn, it's going to be their world, man. I'm just trying to plant that seed, Might not be able to sit under the tree, but it's going to be there. You know what I mean?
Awesome. Well, Anthony, thanks for coming on. Anybody that's watching, anybody that watches this, check out the Landsdale Equality Coalition. It's an awesome organization. Just getting off the ground, now is the time to get involved. I'll also throw out a couple other little shameless plugs and other things after I hop Anthony off the video. But, dude, thanks for coming on. Glad we could get this interview taken care of. I'm gonna pull you off screen. I'll catch up with you once I stop the live stream.
Thanks a lot, man.
No problem. Anyway, thank everybody for watching the Podquest of Bread. I hope everybody's enjoying this new format of the Podquest. Hope everybody's caught the first interview on the Podquest with Mark Charles, and now we got Anthony Simpson. The shameless plugs that I'll throw out there. On top of the Landsdale Equality Coalition, be sure to go check out Monco Activists United, Refuse Fascism Philly, and the shameless plug for me, the Montgomery County Libertarian Workers Coalition, where we are actively trying to repair the image that is thought of when you hear the words libertarian. So, thank you guys for coming and watching the Podquest of Bread. This is not the only episode tonight. We will be back live at 9 p.m. Because we have a little discussion to have about fascists and what really deserves to happen with a fascist ruler. Until then, I'll check you guys.